Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with 8C, and perhaps my voice is a little louder now on this one than it was on the other. I adjusted the microphone a little bit more. So I had already drawn the triangle, and again, going with this, I know that the angle that I'm supposed to be working with is 75 degrees. And then on this one, it says to reach the top of the chimney, you need a ladder that reaches 30 feet high. That means I need the ladder to go up 30 feet. So how many feet long should the ladder be? There's my x. So again, since it's the right triangle, do I use sine, cosine, or tangent? And x is my hypotenuse, 30 is opposite. So with SOHCAHTOA, I'll be using sine. So I'll have sine of the angle, and that should equal my opposite over my hypotenuse. And again, now I go into my cross products. So I'll take 30 times 1, which is 30, and then sine of 75 times x should also be 30. So now to get x by itself, what I'm going to do is divide by sine of 75, which is a decimal, and I could look on that trig table that I gave you guys. These cancel out, and now I'm just left with taking my calculator and dividing 30 by the sine of 75, and I get about 31 feet. So I'm just rounding it to that. And that is number 8. All right, let's go to the next one now. We are going to go to problem number 9. And on problem number 9, again, here I'm going to start to use law of sines or law of cosines. And I'm going to know which one based on the fact do I have cousins or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take everything and write it into my box. And I see I don't have um, cousins, so that means I'm going to use law of cosines. So which side do I go for first? I go for the smallest side, so I'm going to go for A. And that means I need to look at my notes or the formulas that will be given to you on the test and look at the formula that has the A's on the end, because I'll be finding big A. So the formula goes a squared, little a squared, so that's 8, equals b squared plus c squared, minus 2 times b and c again, times cosine of a, which I don't know, and that's what I'm going to find. Now, I told you guys I would either underline or I would put those in parentheses, so I'm going to do that because I want to keep the stuff in the parentheses protected. Now I'm going to start cleaning this up so I can get a by itself. So I'm going to square everything. And even though I'm protecting the parentheses, I can multiply the numbers in the parentheses. So I'm going to multiply my 2, 12, and 10. And when I do that, I get 240. And at this point, just as a safety precaution, I'm going to add the opposite on my subtraction right here. I'm going to add and make that 240 and negative 240. The next thing I'm going to do is add up my 144 and 100. And now I'm ready to start getting a by itself. So to get a by itself, I'm going to have to move the cosine. I'm going to have to move the negative 240 and the 244. And when in doubt, you move the furthest thing away, which is this 244 here. So I'm going to move it through subtraction. And when I subtract 64, take away 244, I get negative 180. And I'm actually going to move over here now. And now to get a by itself, I'm going to move the negative 240 through division. I don't need the parentheses anymore because I'm done protecting it. So I'm going to divide by negative 240 here and negative 240 here. And when I do that, I get 0.75 is how I'm working with the decimal. And now to get a by itself, I do the opposite of cosine, which is inverse cosine. So now a is by itself. And then what I'm about to circle is what you would type into your calculator. And when I'm done, I get big A to be rounded 41 degrees. So now I have a choice. What should I go for? B or C? You go for the next smallest one. So I'm going to go for C. And I'm going to do that a little bit higher up. So now that I have cousins, I can go back to law of sines, and it goes 8 over sine of 41, and then that will equal 10 with sine of c. So I go to my cross products. 10 times sine of 41 is about 6.56. And the more decimals I write down, the closer we're going to have the same answer. So I'm not going to make it 6.6. I'm going to make it about 6.56. And then that means 8 times the cosine of c, I'm sorry, sine of c, should also be 6.56. So now to get c by itself, I move the 8 in the sign. I'm going to move the 8 first by dividing. And when I divide that on my calculator, I get about 0.82. And now my last step to get that sign by itself is I go back to that inverse. Inverse sine, inverse sine. And what I'm circling is what you type into your calculator. And when you hit second sine and type in 0.82, you get C to be about 55 degrees. Sorry, this wasn't the neatest handwriting. So now that I know big C, I can add up my three angles, or my two angles, subtract them from 180, and get big B, which ends up being 84. Okay? So that was number 9. Let's go take a look at number 10 and see which rule we're going to have to use. So first, again, I'm going to fill in my box. No cousins again, but what I do see is this time I have an angle. And because I have this angle, that's the formula I should use, which means I'm going to be finding its partner, little a. And that formula goes a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times those, and then times cosine 23. And this is the nice one because you can go to your calculator, type the whole thing in. And when you do that, you end up with a squared equaling about 67.29. And then to get a by itself, we're going to square root both sides, so that a is about 8.2. And now I have my first answer, and now I have my cousins. And now I'm going to use my cousins along with b, because that's the next shortest side, to find angle b. So my cousins will go 8.2 over sine of 23. And then that would be 14 with sine of big B. And now I go back to my cross products. 14 times sine of 23, I'm going to put 5.47 instead of 5.5. And that means when I take 8.2 times sine of B, I should also have 5.47. And now to get B by itself, I have to move the sign and the 8.2. I move the 8.2 first by dividing. And when I divide that on my calculator, I get 0.667. And I'm starting to put a few more decimals so I can get a better answer. And the last step to get B by itself, opposite of sine, inverse sine. And what I'm circling is what you type into your calculator. And when you do that, you end up with big B equaling rounded to 42 degrees. And now angle A plus angle B plus angle C adds up to 180, so my missing amount is 115. All right, let's go to number 11. Uh, Number 11, I'm going to take my picture, fill in the right information, so I know big B, I know big C, and I know little c. 14 is opposite of big C. So I have cousins, that's law of sine. Which side will I go for first? I have to go for B. I don't have a choice. So it's going to be B with sine of 118, and then 14 with sine of 36. I'm going to go to my cross products. First, 14 times sine of 118. And when I do that, I get 12.36. And then that should be the same as whatever b times sine of 36 is. And now to get b by itself, I just have to move that sine of 36. And I'll move it through division since it is being multiplied. And now my final answer is what I'm going to circle. That's what you type into your calculator. And when you type that into your calculator, you get really close to 21. So I'm just going to write 21 down. The next thing I'm going to do is, which I could have done first actually, is find my missing angle. The three angles again, A plus B plus C is 180. So with some quick math, I get A to be 26. And now I'm going to find 26 by also pairing it up with my cousins. So sine of, sorry, A with sine of 26. And then I'm going to pair it up with the cousins, 14 with sine of 36. So I'm going to do my cross products. And when I do that, I get 14 times sine of 26 is about 6.14. And multiplying the other way, that means A times sine of 36 should also be about 6.14. And now to get A by itself, I'm going to divide by sine of 36. Since it's multiplied, I'm going to do the opposite and divide. And now when I'm going to type, or circle is what you would type into your calculator. So when you type that in, you get little a to be about 10.4. And that's 11. All right, let's take a look at the final one, 12. Do we have cousins or no cousins? So looking at my picture, I know big B and little b is opposite of it. And I know little a. And I look, and again, I have cousins. They're B. I'm going to use them to find A. So 23 with sine of A. And pairing it up with the cousins as 14 and sine of 33. Do my cross products, 23 times sine of 33 on the calculator first, and I get about 12.53. And that's the same as 14 times sine of A. And now to get A by itself, I have to move the sine and the 14. I'm going to move the 14 first by dividing. So when I divide, I get about 0.895. So let's just make it 0.90. And now to get A by itself, I do second sine. Again, that's the only way to get rid of sine, the opposite, the inverse. And when you type that in, you're going to get about 64 degrees. So that'll be big A. Now that I know big A, I can use the get fact again that the angles add up to 180 and figure out that big C is 83. And then pair up 83 with my cousins. So 14 with sine of 33 and C with sine of 83. Do my cross products, 14 times sine of 83. And that's about 13. I'm just going to make it 13.9. And then that should equal sine of 33 times C. And now I'm going to take 13.9 and divide it by sine of 33 because I want to move it. That's the opposite of multiplying. And when I'm done, I get C to be about 25.5. And then there's little c. And again, you guys, when you're done, for every answer, I would check is the smallest side with the smallest angle, which, looking here, my smallest side is 14, and that is with my smallest angle. And my biggest side, which is 25.5, is with the biggest angle. And that's a really good idea if you got the problems right or wrong. It's not perfect, but it does work. Okay? Remember, have your reviews done, and we'll see you on test day.